Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and today I want to talk about Kevin Durant, the decision that he has to make this summer, and how it affects the Golden State Warriors as well as the rest of the league. Today, I'm going to be making the case that Kevin Durant's free agency decision this offseason has the potential to be the most important NBA decision in the history of the league. Yes, even bigger than any of LeBron's 3 previous moves, as well as going over a number of options that he has this summer, both inside and outside of Golden State. Typically, when looking at a free agency decision, I would start by looking at the team payroll and who they have coming off the books and go from there, but in this case, it doesn't really matter. Steph and KD are both 30 years old, Draymond Green and Klay Thompson are both 28, and KD and Klay are both free agents this summer, while Draymond is in 2020. In a vacuum, the Warriors could re-sign all 3 of those guys to max or near max deals the next 2 summers and continue to dominate the league by filling out the roster around that core of 4 players. Technically, there is no hard cap in the NBA, and because they have each player's bird rights, they could continue to run it back with this group. But they would be incredibly far over the luxury tax, so every dollar they spend would be even more expensive than just $1. So the payroll situation in terms of can the Warriors bring these guys back is irrelevant. It's more about do they want to from a financial standpoint. On the basketball court, yes, obviously the Warriors would love to have all of these guys back, but from a monetary perspective, it might not be all that feasible. Klay and Draymond have both been on relatively cheap deals throughout this entire era that they've dominated, and Steph was as well before signing his big deal in 2017. Draymond saved them some money with his new deal in 2015, as did Kevin Durant when re-signing in 2017, and neither player has shown a willingness to do that this time around. So KD wants a big deal. The Warriors are looking to be increasingly frugal with their spending, especially with Klay and Draymond also coming off the books in 2019 and 2020 respectively, which has led to speculation that KD is considering leaving the Warriors as a free agent this summer. And that's all of the salary cap / payroll context surrounding this situation as it relates to the Warriors. Now let's get to Durant's decision specifically, which is really the core of this entire video. First, why would Kevin Durant stay with the Warriors? Okay, this is pretty obvious. So long as those 4 guys are in Golden State and they stay healthy and play at the level they are at right now, they're going to be absolute favorites to win an NBA title every year. Other teams might catch up a bit, they might regress some, but for a while at least, they'd be the best team in basketball, and KD could add to his ring collection with relative ease, with the goal of surpassing LeBron James in total championships on his mind. He seemingly has a good relationship with the rest of the Big 4, so he'd be having a great time in the Bay Area as well. And if he signed a 1-1 or 2-2 deal like he has been recently, he would always have the flexibility to move on down the line in his later 30s if he chose to. On the negative side, there are 2 big issues: the money and his legacy. I already talked about the money at length, so I'll keep this short. But Durant, as a 10+ year veteran, would be eligible for a max contract or 35% of the cap, or around $38 million in the first year of the contract. And given the Warriors' situation and their past history, I highly doubt they would give him the full max, leaving money on the table for Durant, something he has said he is not interested in. The second part, which I haven't talked about, is his legacy. This has been talked about a ton since he joined the Warriors, but a lot of people don't really count his 2 and counting championships he has won with the team. He was one of the best players in the league and joined a 73-win team that he was just up 3-1 on in the playoffs. And with the important exception of last year's playoff series against the Rockets, their road to back-to-back NBA championships has largely gone unchallenged. If Durant stayed or even finished out his career with the Warriors, he would never be included in any serious discussion as one of the greatest players of all time from a legacy standpoint. Not talking about his talent level, just his GOAT status. He has never won a championship without Steph, Klay, and Draymond, and has become one of the most hated players in the league since he joined the Warriors. And he can't fix either of those problems, both of which are things that clearly bother him, unless he decides to play somewhere else, which, depending on your perspective on the situation, is a lot of motivation to leave. Now, having talked enough about the Warriors, let's get to the decision itself, and where Durant could go, and how that would relate to his situation in Golden State. The good thing for Durant is he certainly has options. As of right now, there are 9 teams that are on track to have enough cap space to sign him to the full max this summer, with the handful of others that could make some moves to create it if they got the impression that KD would be interested in joining them. So unless I mention otherwise, the money isn't going to be an issue for any of these teams. If KD leaves the Warriors, it's going to be for the fullbacks or very close to it, and all of these teams can make that happen, again, unless I say otherwise. First, let's take a look at the New York Knicks. They have about $52 million in space, enough for Durant, and about $14 million left over, but they do have some pretty hefty expiring contracts like Courtney Lee and Lance Thomas that they could move to create more space if they wanted. But the real draw here would be playing in New York and what it could potentially do for Durant's legacy. The Knicks have been to the playoffs just 3 times since 2004, haven't made the finals since 1999, and since a playoff appearance streak from 1988 to 2001, they've largely been a laughingstock. They've had the space to sign free agents before, but haven't been able to reel in any big fish. But if he was able to come in and bring the Knicks some glory and maybe even make them championship contenders or win the title outright, that would be the crowning achievement of any player's legacy, especially one as damaged as Durant. Think for a second about how differently LeBron was perceived after he brought Cleveland a championship in 2016. I think success with the Knicks would do a similar thing for Durant, minus the coming home narrative. On the negative side, the Knicks are one of the worst run franchises in the league with a largely clueless owner, so that isn't an ideal situation, but signing with the Knicks this summer does have many advantages for Durant. Moving on now to a really intriguing option for me, and that's the LA Clippers. There would be a similar situation here for Durant to that of the Knicks. An NBA player that could bring the Clippers a finals appearance or a championship would certainly be remembered fondly, and they have the space to make it work with about $11 million left over. But the reason this option is especially interesting to me is the possibilities beyond this summer. They have basically no salaries on the books beyond 2019, so they would have a chance to bring in a number of guys in the summer of 2020, maybe even Anthony Davis, to pair with Durant and try and help make the Clippers the team to beat in the NBA. I know that's kind of weird to think about the Clippers as a free agent destination over the Lakers, who I'm going to talk about in a second, but the possibilities are there, and you could argue that the Clippers actually present the best situation for KD outside of Golden State if you wanted to. They have the money, he'd be revered for leading them to new heights, and he could form a great team there via free agency now or moving forward. But of course, if I'm going to talk about the Clippers, I also have to talk about the Lakers. They have the space, they have LeBron, and they have Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, and Lonzo Ball under contract through 2020. But there are 2 big issues here to the point that I don't really have them as serious threats for Durant right now. First, the whole legacy deal of him needing to win a championship outside of Golden State wouldn't really be satisfied by winning one with the Lakers alongside LeBron. The line would just shift from he's never won a championship without the Warriors to he's never won a championship without the Warriors or LeBron. Plus, it's the Lakers, so he wouldn't get any bonus points for bringing them glory like he would with the Knicks or Clippers. And secondly, I'm questioning how much stars really want to play with LeBron, and especially Durant, given the reasons I just talked about. First, Kyrie Irving wanted out, and then Kawhi and Jimmy Butler didn't jump at the possibility of playing with him on the Lakers. And that's enough evidence for me to question whether or not the Lakers with LeBron James are as much of a free agency destination as many, including myself, thought they would be initially. With both LA teams and the Knicks now covered, I'm going to throw out a few wildcard teams to keep an eye on. First, the Brooklyn Nets. I intentionally am not going to cover them in too much depth so as not to risk being called a homer, but they do have a good coach, some solid young players, and a ton of space to bring in another max player right away in addition to Durant, if that's the way it works out, which is something that is unique to them. Plus, he gets to play in Brooklyn, earns a legacy boost if he wins them a championship, and nobody can say he never won one outside of Golden State. Second, the Chicago Bulls. Similar to Brooklyn, they have the space and solid young players, though they don't have the luxury of a second max cap space slot. Returning glory to MJ City as he winds down his career would be a great narrative, and they might even let him pick the coach once Fred Hoiberg is inevitably let go after this season. Lastly, the Philadelphia 76ers. They have the space, they have Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and whatever Markelle Fultz ends up being, and they play in one of the best sports cities in the country. The same legacy boost applies here, and they have the talent on hand right now to actually make a run at a finals appearance straight away. With those covered, I do feel the need to completely squash the hopes and dreams of 2 fan bases, the Washington Wizards and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Neither of them will have the cap space to sign Durant this summer no matter how hard they try, and they wouldn't be able to until he is 33 or 34 years old at best. They could always be in play for the KD Victory Lap Tour, either in his hometown in DC or back in his old uniform in OKC, but for 2019 at least, it isn't happening. With all those teams covered, you know that I just have to give my opinion on the whole situation. I keep trying to stay level-headed with this because I don't want it to just be wishful thinking, but I really can't see Kevin Durant re-signing with the Warriors this summer. The money and his legacy are too much of a factor in my mind to stay, and there are too many other options to consider for him to not find one to jump at. If I had to rank the possible destinations, keeping in mind that it is early November when this video is being made and a ton of things can change between now and this summer, I would go with the Clippers, followed closely by the Knicks, followed by everyone else. But in the end, I can't overstate how important this decision is and the possible implications of it on the league as a whole. We all know as fans that the NBA is in a great place right now from a night-to-night basis, but there is little to no suspense in terms of who the best team in the league is or who will win the championship at the end. Since KD has been in Golden State, those two questions have been answered before a single game was even played. So for him to leave, possibly to the two biggest markets in the league in LA or New York, would solve arguably the biggest competitive issue the league has right now. If he went to the Clippers, it would be him against LeBron for the control of the city, and if he went to New York, well, the Knicks would be good again. The same goes for Chicago or Brooklyn or Philadelphia. These are big markets that are craving success and would provide a huge boost to the league if they landed KD. Again, I don't think that this is wishful thinking on my part, and I think that KD is leaving this summer. And if he does, it would be the most impactful decision in the history of the NBA. And that is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.